good evening and welcome to Dead Ends. So as you guys know, it's your favourite debate show here where you can all have an honest and open say about how you feel about things. So tonight we are going to be talking about online paranormal courses and whether they're worth their weight in gold or not. So our guests this evening are the lovely Kev Kerr from Para and Dr. Cal Cooper. Hello guys, how are you?
Good, thanks. You?
Brilliant.
Yep. All good. Just dashed straight from a BBC interview on bumblebees, which was interesting.
I love bumblebees.
You did have us worried a little bit because we were looking, thinking, I wonder if he knows what time it's on.
I was carefully watching the time, so it's like clockwork up here. I got it spot on. Came to the 30-second countdown.
You'll have to tell us later what you've been doing with those bumblebees. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight, guys, I'm going to hand it over to CJ because if we're being honest tonight, this is one of CJ's most favourite topics. So I will let CJ do all the talking this evening. I have some opinions of my own, and you guys know that I will be letting you all know what those are as we go through the evening. Okay, so CJ, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Kicking it off tonight. Obviously, paranormal online courses. It's a bit of a bugbear with me, to be quite honest. And before we get into talking to our guests tonight, which we really are excited to have Dr. Carlin and Kevin to talk about their experiences about online courses, I've got a bugbear. And one is, if people are taking up these paranormal courses online, it's really, there's dangers attached to it, in my opinion, especially with some of these courses which are advertising diplomas and other things in relation to psychology and stuff. So they do these courses, you pay your money, you get a little bit of a certificate at the end to say, well, yeah, you're now qualified psychologist. No, you're not. And I think the guests will agree on this, because you can't do a course like that in 4 weeks. It takes a long time. And I have come across a lot of people that have posted in the past stating that they've done online courses and now they're a qualified, you could say, demonologist, psychologist, a qualified ghost investigator, whatever that is, you know. So we wanted to do this show tonight and bring on some real people that know what they're talking about when it comes down to these sort of online courses, and in particular to Dr. Cal Cooper, because I believe that you run an online psychology course, don't you? Or not an online, at university.
Yeah, that's right. So at the University of Northampton, we've had a module of parapsychology within the psychology curriculum. So if you came to us to do your bachelor's degree, so your first degree, when you get to your third and final year, one of the modules you can pick from is parapsychology and anomalous experiences. So we've been running that since 1998. And you pick that, you'll pick it with some other modules as well. And because we have specialist expertise and lab facilities in parapsychology, you could also do your whole dissertation, so your final research project, which caps off any degree, in parapsychology as well. And so we're one of probably just over a dozen universities within the UK that runs an accredited parapsychology module within a degree course. So it's governed by the university.
So how long does that actually take to complete from start to finish? Just as a comparison compared to what I've just said about some online psychology courses.
So there's two things. One is the psychology degree itself. If it had a foundation year, and some universities still do that, it would take 4 years to complete the entire degree from start to finish. Most degrees are 3 years. And that one module of parapsychology is roughly about 9 months, but that's also doing 3 other modules at the same time and a dissertation project as well. Right. So it really is, for most people, a full-time process in the space of 1 year when they get to that third year as well. So it's really intense. And when it comes to the online stuff, I've actually, with colleagues in parapsychology, looked into some of these online courses and done them. I've managed to complete some of these diplomas within 4 or 5 days and got distinction. you know, it was kind of, to most people, a few £100 is a lot of money. For this, we were taking it out of research grants to actually find out what's the corruption here, what's going on, and you know, what's the quality of these and who's running them. And so, you know, the amount of time that you can do them, you could do them in a day if you really wanted to. Sometimes they're limited on how much they release the next bit to you to make it last longer. But we can discuss that more as you want to know more. But you know, the speed of these is ridiculous, and also the costing of them it doesn't compare to a real degree. I mean, still a few £100 is a lot of money, but a degree is several thousands of pounds.
But you see, this is where it gets. Well, I get concerned about it because at the end of the day, you know, that is an awful lot of money to a lot of people out there, and to the average person that does this as a hobby and that wants to further their knowledge. And I'm all for anybody that wants to get out there and further their knowledge, read books, watch, and if you know an expert, suck them dry of all the information that you can get from them, really, you know, just to gain that knowledge. But it does concern me when people are paying these large amounts of money for these courses, and then they actually do think that they've got a qualification. And obviously, again, this is why we wanted to speak to you guys, because we just wanted to give a real comparison of what it's really like to have these courses, but what can be done about them. I mean, because at the end of the day, you can't stop them, can we? Anybody can go out and put out a course, and I suppose it's down to the individual if they want to do a course that, you know, that is put there that might take their interest up. I suppose really it's about getting awareness out there about certain particular courses like psychology, because I have come across some people who have said they're taking some online psychology courses. That raises alarm bells with me.
Yeah, it does for me.
Yeah, really big time alarm bells, because I think if they go into somebody's property to do, and maybe they may be asked to go in there, they could cause more harm. And that to me is the danger signs on it. And but as I said, there's not really much we can do unless we can get awareness out there that these online courses are not really what should be done. And it brings me on to something like with the groups, which I'll go into, like ASSA, like SBR, because I do know that those do run courses. But it, you know, it makes me think, do we need to push these courses out there? And should there be like an open door policy from the bigger organizations to say, hey, say twice or three times a year, we're going to run a free course, a beginner course, some sort of course introduction to it, and try and capture people from that point of element. I don't know what you think about it, Kev.
Well, I think the issue being is these sort of false courses that are out there, like, they're not necessarily what they're sold to be, but there also does need to be some governance of that. I think the way we're doing things is, in the paranormal, we're quite renowned for our gullibility. It's a very easy community to sway and sort of wave some ghosts in someone's face, and people are there straight away. I recently did the Higgy Pop courses just to see what they were like. And as Cal said, it's just, you know, it took me probably less than an hour to do one of the courses. And it did feel more like a pop quiz at the end of reading a small book. You know, it was just this is how you ghost hunt. This is what this is. That's what that is. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was like a nice little read about the paranormal. And then, I wonder if I can get 100%. And lo and behold, I'm an experienced investigator and I got 70% the first time around, because the answers that I thought were correct were wrong according to the quiz. That's kind of another thing with them is the people who are given this information, they're not necessarily experienced in what they do. And I think the worst part is they don't understand the damage they can do. And the biggest problem for me and pretty much the whole of the paranormal community, and what I try and do, is people don't understand that when they go into these people's houses, when they go and do an investigation, when they're dealing with vulnerable individuals, that they're actually dealing with vulnerable individuals. You know, most of the time, should say, they buy into what either the delusion that the individual's living into, they buy into that and they make it worse, they solidify that, and then they leave. and leaving a vulnerable person believing 100% that there is either someone who's completely invisible and could attack them in their house, or that things that they've experienced, however horrible it is, raped in their sleep by demons and things, is 100% real. And then they're left with no help at all. And a lot of these courses sort of go, yeah. So this is an infrared camera and it sees ghosts in the dark. And it's like, well, no, like, it doesn't see ghosts. If it saw ghosts in the dark, we'd have lots of infrared videos of lots of ghosts all the time, no problem at all. But you can explain what an infrared video is, what it's doing, what is emitting infrared. That's just what the lens is doing. Sort of what Steve Parsons does with ghostology. He goes down to the kit and says, look, this is what it does. It's not a ghost scanner. It's not something that you're going to be able to see. It's a bit of kit that is usually used in the dark. But
he's revisiting ghostology now, isn't he? He's revising it or something, and I'm looking forward to having a look at that. And actually, maybe, fingers crossed, if we can get him to come on the show as well to talk about it, because I think it would be beneficial to everyone.
That went hand in hand with his revision of the SBR's had for a very long time. It was a book that came out just a little booklet in the 1930s, the Notes for the Investigators of Spontaneous Cases. So that was the Ghost Hunter's Handbook of the do's and don'ts. And Steve has recently revised it. It's been revised several times over the decades. And I think he retranslated that back through into ghostology in its recent revision, because he's also just done a new guidebook on, if you are going to take gadgetry, which people don't always do really on actual investigations, trying to collect data from hauntings, this is how you do use it if you want to use it. This is another thing with the media leading to misconceptions, because I've been involved in programs recently where I'm reviewing investigators and their investigations, and I can't even say more often than not, they are only doing what they believe to be an investigation in the dark with infrared. And when I've done investigations, it has never been like that. It is a TV adaptation and portrayal of how people do it, because the real portrayal of ghost hunting and collecting data on a haunting to write a paper on that is boring. It doesn't translate through to TV. No one would watch it, because sometimes you're just sat eating your sandwiches at midday with the sunshine beaming through the windows and just looking at a few TV monitors, making a few notes, and then going for another walk around and making notes and then bringing back and typing up your notes. It's boring. That doesn't make TV. But this is the portrayal that then people think, well, that's how you do it. I'll form my own group and we'll all go out at night and buy some night vision cameras and do the same. So this is the problem.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. It is boring, real investigating.
See, I think I always have fun on my investigations, but that is because I am a hobbyist investigator. I'm not a serious investigator. Okay, so I'm not the one that does all the books and writes everything down and then comes back and gets onto my Facebook page and tell everybody about my experiences and what the temperature was at night. And I'm a hobbyist. I go out because I enjoy socializing. And I think what you see on TV is a bunch of hobbyists who have realized, well, there's a bit of money to be made in this. They're not, I don't class them as serious. I just class them all as hobbyists. The serious investigators are the ones you don't ever really truly see, to be quite honest.
No.
You really don't. Because like you say, they are boring. So why would you want to watch them?
Because they're there in the day.
Yeah. And they don't investigate with the lights off. Some of them investigate with the lights on, because if you see a sound, you want to know where it's coming from, not be blinded, don't you? I mean, I've got to be honest. I used to be a kit junkie myself, as Kev knows. You've known me for a fair few years, and I think you would agree. You've seen me evolve over the years. But that's only because what I did was I would ask questions. Like I would go to you, ask you for advice. I'd go to other people that had been in it for a while, and in the end, it weaned me off the gadgets.
Yeah.
And now, it's eyes, ears, notepad, and Kev, I like to know, a watch, so you can write down timings. Because we did an experiment on our Genesis project some time ago, where we had people just writing it down and then comparing notes at the end. Yeah, everybody was quiet. It was a boring compared to what most investigations was like. But it was quite remarkable how some was picking up on the same at the same time as well.
Yeah.
And
And the
I
way
found that
that-
quite, and the way it was done, it was fascinating.
Yeah. And the way that people would say they heard what sounded like a car outside and someone else heard footsteps. And it's exactly the same time, but it just shows that difference between individuals.
Okay, so we've got a question in the chat room from Beverly Turney, and she says, so to become a paranormal investigator via college or courses, how can you get diplomas as this field is not recognised? Also, what do the examinees rate their either experiences or marks on? Where did they get their qualifications from? So I'll leave that up there.
The main point here is you can't get diplomas in this. Some people have mentioned in the chat, which I'd seen already, there are probably three or four only legitimate places that I am aware of as someone who does this full time for a living as an academic and someone who is an academic of education as well, where you can go online. And that is Dr. Kieran O'Keefe runs his own school online, the School of Parapsychology. He is the head of psychology at Bucks-New University and a parapsychologist whose PhD involves parapsychology as well. And so he runs online CPD training courses where some places, I don't know if it's still the case, but it certainly was at one time, that if you'd done his course, places like the University of Derby that do parapsychology recognise the CPD from doing his online courses. Caroline Watt at the University of Edinburgh, they have an introductory certificate, so another CPD thing, not giving you the title, but a flavour of parapsychology by engaging in blogs and chat forums throughout the course, and you get a certificate at the end. And then there is also the Australian Institute for Parapsychological Research. They do a few online certificates, once again, CPD-based stuff delivered by known parapsychologists through the University of Adelaide and their own institution as well. So those are the only ones that I really know of. If I've missed one off, I can't remember what that is, but I've seen someone's mentioned things like the Centre of Excellence, and there was also Belford University and various other ones, the College of Management Science, and various other, run by people that are unknown, who I don't even know if their qualifications are legitimate. They're certainly not known to parapsychology. Some of us have tried out these courses and know that they are just based on a single textbook where they are just saying, look up the answer, it's on page 122 and write it in there, send it back to us. It's not legitimate. And I've seen a lot of people that have added me to social media and I think, oh, who is this person? And they've got professional qualified parapsychologists or even doctor and gone on there. And I'm like, I'll start a conversation saying, where are you based? Because we're such a small community. Everyone in parapsychology pretty much knows each other worldwide. And they'll say, oh, I'm not based anywhere. And I said, well, where did you do your doctorate, though? And then they'll give a name. I'm like, what's that? Institute of such and such. Who did your Viva? Who were your examiners, your PhD? What do you mean Viva? And then all of it crumbles away. It's not a typical doctorate. It's not a typical degree. They don't know what I mean by thesis or Viva or statistical analysis and using SPSS. None of the terminology is there. And then suddenly you find it's this website, it's a .co.uk or it's a .org or a .com. Those aren't educational institutions, those are companies or, whatever organization. And they've gone on for a few hundred quid, few $100, sometimes shockingly, 1,000 or so. And say, well, it took me 6 months and blah. I even went out and met them. You might have done. For some places, it's okay to open a business that gives you a certificate, but it's not a registered or official educational body. Doesn't necessarily mean it comes with real accreditation. Sometimes their own accreditation is other made-up organizations by themselves, and it's just a circular weirdness of accreditation. Well, it's accredited by this and this and this. It sounds, to the layperson that goes on, legitimate. Of course it does. That's what they want to do. So you buy it, you do it, it creates the income. For someone like me who lives and breathes it, it's frustrating because I feel angry for the person doing it. I feel sorry for the person who's taken it on and lost that money, because if they've gone that far, they genuinely want to do it. But then there's another side to it. Have they done that because they can't afford the actual degree route or fear they can't get onto a degree with what qualifications they do have? So this is the alternative option. But then when they do get it, well, their friends and family just think, well done you, I'm so proud of you. But then they'll never enter the world of parapsychology because will they get accepted at the conference? Will they get accepted at the university? No, because the qualification speaks for itself. No one will recognize it. No one recognizes that person either. And I've known some people that have tried to blag their way through, realize they can't penetrate parapsychology because they went this route. And so they just keep to themselves. They call themselves doctor, They call themselves a parapsychologist. They do go out to people's houses, but they only tell their friends and family and those on their social media. And anyone that's in the know, get rid of them, because they will out me. And it's strange. So you mentioned, well, how does someone become a legitimate investigator? How does someone get recognized? There are two things. That's the gray area we don't want. You can either go the academic route if you want to. I was never academic. I got low GCSEs. I just got some C's and I barely scraped my 5, and I didn't even do well at English, and I had to do so much again. I was never naturally academic. But I had a passion for why people have these experiences. So with a B in photography at A-level, I got onto a psychology degree with general studies as well that some universities didn't like. And those were my 2 A-levels that got me there. It was my passion and my drive that got me there. And reading, and I was never a good reader, but I knew there was truth in the books, more truth than I was ever going to find on social media, which was just beginning at the time, or in TV documentaries. So I just read and I met the real people, and I wanted to hear the truth about the science and the fors and the against. And that's what drove me there. So from not being an academic, I ended up with near 5 degrees and my 2 doctorates, and I focused primarily in parapsychology. You could do that if you wanted to. I've made it my full-time career to do so. Or you become a member of organizations such as the SPR or ASAP. And what do you do then? Keep your daytime job, keep an income going, make sure you are comfortable and you are happy and you love what you're doing as a passion. And my main comment to you becoming an expert within that domain is read everything going that you can get your hands on, either because you can buy the book, or if you can't afford buying so many books, your membership to those organizations will grant you access to the lending library, like being a university student. You can borrow as many books as you like and just return them in the post or when you next go to that organization. So no one can ever say that I don't have access to that knowledge. Those are the 2 routes. A lot of SPR members were just readers, or they were academics. They were not people that got false qualifications and then tried to blag their way through.
Can I just say to all our comments in the chat room, we got in first, Dr. Cal Cooper, okay? Just to let you all know, we see in the comments coming up there. It is a bit of fresh air. Kev Kerr and Dr. Cal Cooper, we got them first. Just remember that, you lot. But there's a lot of people which are finding it's a breath of fresh air, but using one comment that was put up on there of having people like yourselves on the show, because it fills me full with joy, because we're actually getting awareness out there. And I think that's what it's like, outreach, really. That's the way that I look at it, because I used to do outreach years ago. It's just get out there and just get the right information and the correct way to do things in the field, and then people will take it on themselves to do what they want to do. There's a couple of comments that said, there's people that want to go in and do this, and it does come down to cost, because not everybody can afford to do it. Now, my hat goes out to those people, and this is why I said right at the beginning of the show, would it be something that you guys could take back to the perspective like SPR and ASAP, that maybe 2 or 3 times a year they could do a free open online course via that association for those who can't afford these big things, to reach out to people, because I reckon you would grab more people, get more people interested and doing it the correct way. But you have to give something, if that makes sense, to give something to get something back.
It has to be sold correctly. That's the issue. ASAP made a real big issue for themselves years ago, when they obviously said, okay, we've actually managed to do this accredited course. The units involved, it was it's fantastic. You're going to be basically a government licensed investigator. But the problem is they referenced at the same time their training courses, which everyone got completely confused and decided if you did their training courses, you instantly become a government registered investigator. And that was, it was a missell. I was at the conference myself, and it was like, wow, okay, they can do this. And it's like, how are they going to do that? So I signed up, thought, okay, I'll do it. It only lasted 2 units before that actual side of it dropped out completely. Well, this is it, But then people got confused over the years. That sort of never went away. That was what the aim was, but that was just the aim for that course, that one course, not their training courses, but an actual course on on sort of scientific methodology to parts of psychology that obviously affect them in the paranormal, all that kind of stuff as an actual accredited course. And unfortunately, they failed at that. But they still kept their investigator training courses in place. So people did that training course, say, right, this is our investigator training course. They've gone on it, and then they're like, yeah, I'm government accredited. And you're like, ooh, no, you're not at all. Like, but
you've just got ethics, and you understand ethics and brands.
That's it, basically.
How to use a torch.
Yeah, it's like, well done. Like, this is how you approach an investigation safely. That's what the courses are. The courses aren't telling you how to find a ghost, how to see a ghost, all that kind of stuff. It's quite literally just about being safe, using the correct methodology, being aware of vulnerable individuals, and being aware of the standard psychological things that you will come across that you'll say, that might be a ghost, that might be a ghost. And it was a course for people who wanted to be a member of ASAP as an investigator. It was a way of safeguarding not just ASAP, but obviously the individuals they were dealing with. But because of that initial communication and the crossover, to this day, people still think, because they've done that course. So maybe if anyone who's still running the courses for ASAP takes that into account and makes that clear from the moment they advertise those things, it makes it clear that it's not an accredited course. It's not. It's more for fun. I don't know. That's the only way you can describe it. It's not an academic course. It is purely informational. And in all fairness to ASAP, I've done the first course. I've done and ran the second course. So I can tell you 100% that it's not academic. It's not there for qualifications, but it is informational and it's safe. Yeah. And that's what's important. The information you gain from that is safe. You're not, if you follow that, fine, you're not going to find yourself in a really bad situation. But if you go around saying that you're government accredited, that's not safe. It turns the whole course on its ass.
It also puts people off, doesn't it, as well, when you go in and you say, oh, well, I'm government trained, and you walked into somebody's house and say, well, I'm government trained investigator. It gives the wrong.
No, that's the problem. Is it gives false confidence. It makes makes those vulnerable individuals believe almost anything that comes out of that person's mouth. And if that person says something in the wrong, forget it. You could find yourself in a situation where someone's committed suicide on your hands, or someone's murdered another individual, or even caused you harm because they're schizophrenic, and there's a situation where you've kind of made the situation 100 times worse. I found myself in the early days locked in a house, and thinking I'm never going to get out of here, and then managing to get out, and then managing to get a hold of a local hospital and realise that person was actually in need of medication, and someone was able to do something. But if I was thinking, I'll go off on my own and do paranormal. I'm doing paranormal investigations. Oh, it's easy enough. I just go in. Oh, that sounds like sleep paralysis. Great. And then they were like, no, it's not. And it's like, okay, that's what it sounds like, because I was a cocky paranormal investigator who thought he knew everything. And these courses, they teach people that it's kind of okay to go and do that. It's totally fine to go into some random person's house who you have no idea about. One thing I always kind of sell is the mental health first aid course from Mental Health England. Like, every paranormal investigator would do really well to go on that course. A 2-day course explaining how to spot the simplest parts of someone in a mental health crisis. Those small bits, just as a beginning thing to have an idea that when you're dealing with a vulnerable person and what you need to do, what advice to give them, that it's not paranormal. You're chasing ghosts, that's fine, but you need to go, if you're going to go on a course, you need to go on something like that, a mental health first aid course, so you have an understanding, and that's what you need first and foremost. You need to try and safeguard yourself, safeguard the individual, safeguard their families or anyone that's close to them. You have that responsibility as soon as you decide to stick your nose into that situation.
Shadi, could we? There's a question that's been put by Elaine Curtis.
There's a lot of questions, so I am trying to get through them fairly, because I'm trying to start from the top. However, I will do Elaine's.
Just follow up on what Kev just said.
Yeah, sorry. Elaine says we hear a lot about parapsychology in the field now. So can I ask you a little bit about what exactly it studies? So I think this is a great one for Cal. Is it only the environmental effects and the response of the human brain? Can there be a genuine belief in paranormal phenomena? Or do you find going through the course, it's more about how to disprove and find an answer within the person experiencing it?
Well, there's so many elements to that question, and I'll try and keep it concise. But a lot of people assume parapsychologists are just the debunkers, and we're not. There's probably three different strands of looking into anomalous phenomena. One is anomalistic psychology, which people like Professor Chris French primarily focus on, which is, well, let's assume that, you know, we've already got all the conventional explanations that we need within psychology and other things, which produce what we perceive to be a paranormal experience, if we want to call it that. But that doesn't limit anomalistic psychology from putting these claims to the test. So it will do that as well. Parapsychology is often testing these things. That's what it's interested in, separating the wheat from the chaff. But it's also fully aware of conventional explanations, people's belief systems as well. And then we have a third strand, which is clinical parapsychology, which is regardless of what these experiences are and where they come from, we want to look at what impact they have on people, their health and well-being. So if someone has suffered a recent loss, what impact does that actually have on their bereavement and coping mechanism moving forward compared to someone that doesn't have a sense of presence, doesn't dream of the dead, or doesn't have other phenomena that they attribute to be this continuation of survival? So parapsychology will team up with environmental scientists and physicists to look at environmental effects and other things like that. But it's primarily coming from the viewpoint of psychology to try and understand these things as well. So if you were to do a university-based course on parapsychology, it would look at a variety of things. I've never really seen parapsychology completely as a standalone subject because it's just so interwoven with other disciplines as well to try and understand, ultimately, a process we're aware of, but we don't currently have an explanation for certain aspects of it in some of the unique cases. So separating the wheat from the chaff is basically what it teaches you. It teaches you to be a good critical thinker.
Mm.
You wanted to say something before we.
Yes, that was right.
Yeah, was there something you wanted to go back on?
Yeah. So you mentioned that the SPR, the Society for Psychical Research, and ASAP do courses. I just wanted to correct that. So ASAP do that course, which Kev has mentioned and knows a lot more than I do than me because he's done it. But for the SPR, they don't run any courses at all. All they do is, if you become a member, the lectures that they give are free to members. Lending Library becomes yours to use as well. You can go and use that. You can also go to Cambridge to look at the archives when you book in. The only thing that you end up, I think, paying for is the weekend workshops, which is kind of like a course in a way, but there's no interaction. It's more so an entire day, one day on a weekend, of people talking about one specific topic. But there are opportunities for Q&A and interaction. So it's like going to, you know, a day of lectures at university, and then conferences as well, which ASAP are the same. When ASAP run a conference, there will be a fee to go along for that. But ASAP are the ones that do this investigator course to regulate their own members, I guess. And you know, we've assessed our member for investigating hauntings here, and we've seen them through the course, and you know, we know their capabilities. The SPR don't do that, but they have their own committee that are just for investigating hauntings, which is the Spontaneous Case Committee, which people like Steve Parsons, he's on that, and it's chaired by Dr. Graham Kidd, who's a psychiatrist. So there's a variety of disciplines involved on that committee to address all these different claims people might make and how to approach them.
Oh, right.
Okay, so Jared Cooperman, Jared Cooperman. As the paranormal field is unregulated, ungoverned, and not proven to be real, all you are doing buying these courses is lining the pockets of someone who has their own theories and beliefs. Yes, I have done some of these courses, and I presume he's talking about these 20-hour online courses to see what they are like. And to be honest, you could find all the information from a quick Google and save yourself some money. It's just another scam that the paranormal field is subjected to. And do you know what? I have to be really honest. I agree with Jared. I absolutely think a lot of these online courses are scams. I think it's nothing you couldn't find yourself by talking to people in the field and by Googling, to be quite honest. What do you guys think?
And I think it's just common sense, really. I've said to you in the past, Kev, when we've had talks about this. To me, I think the paranormal is a lot about common sense. To be quite honest, is knowing bits and bobs. But I mean, I suppose really he's got a fair point. There is a lot of scams within the field, and people are making money. The paranormal at the moment is an absolute cesspit in my mind. And it's something that I don't really, and I've said before, I think I mentioned to you, Cal, I'm on the verge of I just don't want to know the being paranormal anymore because of it. And it's like going underground. I don't know how you two guys feel.
That's exactly what sort of people in our position do. You can't stop the monster. There's certain moral aspects in there where you have a passion for the paranormal and you have passion for finding out what the answers are, and you want the truth, and you sort of get involved, and then over time you have a choice to make, and the only way to describe it is you can, one, understand, like I said, and no offense to anyone, but the gullibility of the community for the want and the need for things to be real by manipulating that and saying, and that question that we all asked when we got very excited about the fact that we were doing these things, to go, how can I do this all the time? How can I make money from it? As Cal said, take the academic path, do the hard work, do the graft, come out with the knowledge. Or you can go down the other route of going, well, actually, I'll tell you what's really easy is this box is just BP. It just beeps randomly. It does this. And if I put it to like the Ghost Ark for one, if I put a big price on this, people are going to want it. So they do. And they may have a genuine interest in the paranormal, but they also have a genuine interest in their own back pockets. And they have a genuine interest in being quite high up in the field. They want to become the gods of war, so to speak. Yeah. So the easiest way is to either put on courses, charge people money for courses that gives you income where you still deal with the paranormal, sell people dodgy equipment and all kinds of other things to make money and still be able to do what you want to do in the paranormal. Lock down locations so that people can't just use them if they want to go do investigations or experimenting. Lock them down so that it's exclusive to them. Try and make their name bigger. Try and get the most likes. Try and get all of these things. And the financial side, that's what people need. And then once that starts to dry up, there becomes a desperation where the morals are kind of flexed and people begin to go, well, actually, I can charge £300 for this course because people are queuing around the corner to jump on it. And all I've done is cut away anyone who questions what I do or says anything, asks any questions in regards to me being accredited or anything else. I can just cut them away because all of my information is going through social media and I have full control of what goes onto my page. And as long as I keep people blindsided to follow that same line, they'll keep giving me the money. They'll keep going. It's the same as a cult, in that sense. But that's what's happening. And it's happening not just with courses. It's happening throughout the whole community. So we've got this group of sheep, that sort of all come into the paranormal, not knowing what's going on, blinded by the lights, and then if they meet the right person or start speaking to the right people, or they come in with a critical mindset where they can sit there and think, no, that sounds like bullshit to me, and they step back and they want to look into it a bit deeper. They go, actually, this is a dead end, and then carry on. They're all good. They'll keep going on very well. And people say, who knows best in the paranormal? Well, the critical thinker knows best. The person who takes a step back, has a breather, says, this doesn't seem right to me, or what's this achieving? And they move forward. But other people go, well, they must know what they're talking about. They're flipping, I don't know, I'm trying to think of names now, but, individuals within the paranormal that seem to have done it for years. They've done it for years and years, so they must know what they're talking about. So I'm going to follow them blindly. I'm going to pay out money for all these things they say to pay out for. The Zach Bagans of the world, the people we see on TV who have become amazingly experienced investigators because the camera gets put in front of them.
You just swore on the show by saying Zach Bagans. I dare you, and I just done it.
I just started retracing what I said. Then thinking, did I swear?
No.
I've looked at these courses, and again, you've just got to look out for the signs. Is the person delivering it known to the field? I've never found a case where they are. look at the web address as well. If it's .ac.uk, then it's had approval under British educational laws to actually have that. And if it's .edu for the US, then yes, and then other countries as well that have that. If you're dealing with a .co.uk, .com, .org, and other things like that, serious alarm bells in the first instance. How their website is laid out, looking at their accreditation system. If it seems ridiculously cheap, it's probably too good to be true. There's a reason that a lot of money goes into degrees because of running the actual campus, the on-site cost for heating, electric, the library that you get, the amount of benefits that you get from a library. For a single research paper, if you were to just now go online, Google a paper that's not open access, any one of us involved in this and in the chat room right now will pay about 30 to 40 pounds for a single research paper to read it. If you're a student at a university or member of staff, you can just go straight and get it for free. That's your right and privilege, and it's one of your privileges of paying so much. Open access instantly to so much knowledge around the world, because you are there, you are reading for your degree, you're not studying for a degree. That's why when you watch University Challenge, a lot will say, I'm reading chemistry, I'm reading geography. Yeah, you're reading the subject to become expertise in your known field. And that was another thing, going back on that, you know, can you really have experts? Well, when it comes to hauntings, you know, to quote Steve again, as you mentioned him, and you said also, CJ, common sense. Haunting investigations is a lot about using your critical thinking, your common sense. Steve said it's not rocket science in some of his talks. That's when we're out in the field and doing something on collecting some very basic data. When we go through to the lab, there's a lot of practice and systems we need to know about: ethics, methodology, data analysis, dealing with participants, and rules and procedures and all sorts. And besides that, there's history to the field. I've got a lot of this knowledge from my own personal home library in my head, but not because I've read all of these books. I know certain paragraphs and sentences that are of importance to me, and I know where certain things are in the timeline going back 150 years or so, or 200 years. And so that's all glued into my head, and it's my day-to-day job. I get paid for this. I supervise other doctoral candidates. I've got 7 under me, all but 1 are doing parapsychology topics. And then I've got my undergraduates, where we get 60 of them every year as psychologists doing this parapsychology module. At Manchester Metropolitan University, they do 100 every year in their module. So there's a lot of people going through the system to deliver that course. Yes, I am an expert. I have the degrees to show it. I have the job to show it as well. And I get brought in for media through to other things as a professional consultant to do it. If I'm not an expert because it's the paranormal, that's a very strange kind of assumption to make. I've seen people make that before, but I think, again, that's the horrible use of the term paranormal or supernatural. Just because we don't know what we're dealing with, or the assumption, then anyone can have a say on it. No, that's not the case. I know about psychology. I know what can weigh up a certain instance to make it seem remarkable to someone. I know about brain function. And that's what we're studying here. Do people have an extended ability to gain information? Can the mind survive outside of the body? Ghosts and hauntings, is there something objective and legitimate to it? You know, you don't turn to a gynecologist or oncologist and say, well, I've seen loads of genitals in my lifetime, or I've known lots of people that have had cancer. No one's an expert. Or you go to your GP and say, I've got a bit of a rash on my arm. Well, I think it's a little bit of psoriasis showing up. Really? Well, no one's an expert, and walk off. You're not going to do that. You know, why on earth should you go to them in the first place? That they are an expert. They have the title and the qualifications for a reason. They don't know everything, but they are professional within their given field. And so I always find on social media that excuse, that term expert, and saying, well, no one's an expert, it's a cop-out when someone's had enough of an online argument. They use it to try and stop it. Sorry, to those people, I say there are experts in the field. I am one of them. Not because I know what's going on. We're trying to figure that out, as every science is. Gynecologists are learning new things. Oncologists are learning new things. Space scientists are learning new things. I'm learning new things every day. But I know my field, and I know what I'm talking about to what we understand to this day. And so there are experts, and there are people that have just read, and they know what they're talking about too. Look at Sir Patrick Moore. He was brilliant for The Sky at Night and things like that. He just read. And he then gained loads of awards and honorary positions and all sorts. He'd been an amateur that had become expert because he read and he knew his field and he was well respected. You can go in those 2 routes. Don't go the grey area. Don't fake yourself. Go the 2 routes. Read or go the professional route.
We've done a show, as you know, about paranormal experts. And if the word terminology paranormal expert, I always believe that you can have an expertise in a subject and bring to the field. I still maintain to this day, if somebody said to me, I am a paranormal expert in the paranormal, I would say you're probably a paranormal, you're probably an expert, as you've stated, in a subject that you are an expert on, that you bring to it, but you wouldn't be a paranormal expert in the paranormal, if that makes sense.
Well, granted, no one can be an expert in what isn't known, an expert on anomalies.
Because that's what the issue was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, again, if we stick with, say, oncology, that's like having an oncologist who deals with primarily cancers that we don't understand and seemingly they don't conform to any other cancers. But that is the most trickiest area, I think, of oncology, because then they're not working with any known processes that match to any other forms of cancer. Certainly when it comes to anomalous experiences for humans, they match up to a lot of psychological anomalies that we are aware of. So we can start to trace why someone's having that kind of experience to an extent. And then we get to a stopgap, we get to a brick wall. And that's where we put it to one side and put a question mark on it. But it might conform to other things that we've seen throughout the history of doing these tests over and over again, where we seem to have something that's quite consistent in how it plays out, a certain behavior in the lab, when we're trying to get someone to see an image in a different room and they're picking it up. The statistics speak for themselves. You're doing it beyond what chance expects. There's no way of cheating, but that's it. And it matches to these real world claims of people seeing, you know, the 9/11 disaster before it happened, all the premonitions of the Titanic before it happened. Okay, people are clearly having these experiences. The lab is supporting that, the statistics are, but why is the brain doing that? And that's the anomaly factor. So there is no single expert that is the expert on the anomalies, but there are certainly a sector of psychologists that want to deal with those anomalies while having an awareness for the other things. So usually a parapsychologist has an expertise in other areas of psychology. I suppose for me, it's things like social psychology and death, dying and bereavement. Those are my other main fields of expertise that I bring to the table for parapsychology, that certainly for after-death communications, understanding bereavement helps me understand a lot about the experiences people will have in the time of bereavement as well. But no one can be an expert in the unknown, but you can be an expert in the field that deals with them. So if we go down that line, I'm happy with that.
Do we think then that these online paranormal courses, so the ones we're talking about are these ones where you don't know the person, to be fair, who's done it, they don't have any, you know, education background that supports them being able to say diploma. So do we think that there is a place for those courses in this field? And if so, what do you think that place should be?
The bogus ones. Yeah, in the bin.
The bogus ones.
It's really annoying because, you know, again, there's that passion for people wanting to have these things. And when I've spoken to them, the instant thing that you get is attack. But I'll try and introduce and say, look, I'm from the University of Northampton. You know, you've just contacted me about this. I've seen you got. I don't recognise who you are. Where did you do that? So I'll follow that line of inquiry. And the moment you start to say, you know, I don't know why you're calling yourself a doctor, or, you know, I find the title parapsychologist or so forth. There is a route to this. Can I help you in terms of, you know, getting onto something? And that's it. There's an instant, oh, you know what you're talking about, and wanting to cut all channels of communication off. And so, but then you've got a question. Was it to do with finances? Does the person even want to legitimately do this? Or is it just a thing to show off to friends and family? Each case is going to be judged on its merits, and everyone's got their reason for doing this. And some of it is just outright deception. They didn't realize that it wasn't legitimate because they didn't know the things to look out for. Other people, I know of people that are using these titles and they know it's not legitimate, but they're still doing it because they close down channels of communication for the real domain. They don't go to the conferences, they don't do any research, they don't submit reports, they don't interact properly, except for on social media with people in the field. So they keep to their own domain, and they think, from what their social media followers think, they think that they're in that group because they can see them linked up and associated with the legitimate people. But that's dangerous again. Kev was mentioning it earlier with the danger of it, because then people will turn to that individual because they're closer, that you can come and investigate my house, Dr. So-and-so. And yet they're not a counselor, they're not a psychologist, they're not trained, they don't understand ethics, they probably don't follow them. And what they end up doing at their house goes nowhere. It's not being governed by anyone, it's not been approved by anyone, no one knows they're there. If I was doing a field investigation, I guarantee my university would know about it, my close colleagues would know that I was going, because one of the protocols is if I'm going in the house, I'm calling them to tell them I'm going in, and I'm calling them to tell them I've left for my own safety. I don't know who that person is, and I won't go alone. I'll be going with a colleague usually female, to make sure you've got different genders there to appease the person that you're dealing with. Would they prefer to talk to a male or a female? If one person is doing the interviewing, the other one can be checking out the house if the resident is happy for you to do so. There's all these different things in place. So, yeah.
Well, the way that I see the paranormal at the moment, because I want to go on the way forward within the paranormal. At the moment, it's like a spaghetti western. It's lawless. There is a lot of gunmen out there. There's a lot of cowgirls out there. There's a lot of bull out there. Let's just put it that way. And that's how I compare it. Because we've got no control in the paranormal whatsoever. And I wanted to ask, not digest a little bit, but I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on what you feel. Should the paranormal have some sort of code of ethics, if you want to call it a code of ethics, that everybody has to, or some form of governing body? I think you know where I'm going, Kev, because I banged on for years that, you know, there should be some sort of governing body. How is it? That's the $1 million question, because let's face it, it'll be a nightmare trying to sort something out. But the way things are going at the moment, the way that there is fraud that is going on within the field, the way that people are being taken advantage of, you know, there's nothing there to stop it. Where are the bloody sheriffs? Come on, you know, where are the marshals? Because at the moment,
police.
I don't see any.
Police, yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, when we're looking at cases of fraud and things, the police, that's what they're there for. You're right. There should be a governing body, but you can't have. You're going to struggle to have a governing body over the whole paranormal community. You're only going to have a sort of optional step in. You know, it's people who make the decision that actually, okay, what I do, I want it to be governed by certain, I don't know, either like the SPR or ASAP or whoever's out there, to say, okay, I'm willing to follow those rules, I'm willing to follow these things, and I sign on to that, and that's how I want to do things. But even if it was the perfect set of rules, you'll always get people who are slightly different to that. If you had an actual governing body, something that was actually connected to the House of Parliament or something, you will find there will always be a big rogue following, a following that want to, because of the way the paranormal world is, a lot of people are in it for their own personal beliefs, their own personal comfort. They've you know, issues with bereavement, especially as Carl said before. They're looking for something, but they want something. And they know what they want. They don't want everyone else's opinions or anything else. They want to just find if a loved one who's passed is still there. But as far as they're concerned, they are. And as long as they keep believing that, and the things that are put in front of them agree with that, it's fine. It's no problem. It's when people like myself come in and say, well, actually, there's a possibility of this, and then the attack begins. So you will always have that rogue cell of people, even if you have the perfect system, the best setup, everything that you could possibly imagine to control those things. You can't, however much we'd love to, you can't 100% control it. They will always be there, because it comes down to the individuals. I
agree with that. You couldn't really control the whole, but there could be some elements that could be brought under control. Now, you know, when it comes to monetary side of it, I suppose really there could be something done on that, where you've got event companies and groups that are charging that I would believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it would be the financial ombudsman, if it's to do with finances, is it? Or there may be something else. But there are certain elements, I think, that you could put some controls on, surely.
There is,
not all of it.
Basically every component is technically controlled by law, except for the personal belief, which obviously there will never be control of. But you are right, there is definitely room for someone who can bring that together. You know, sorry, Cal, go on.
Well, so this alone, if we did this en masse, I mean, this hopefully starts the ball rolling that other people will do other podcasts on this exact same topic. The more people doing it and the more groups that it reaches out to, they know this is the absolute do's and don'ts. It was mentioned, someone had just mentioned it in the chat about trading standards and things like that. You know, some groups set themselves up as a business so they can do nights out and gather in money for it and take people around. Others set themselves up as charities. If anyone within that has done any of these bogus courses and they wish to call themselves doctor, psychologist, parapsychologist, and they're actually trying to counsel someone or give advice or anything like that, then there is a false labeling issue regarding a stated profession and what they can do, and if money is changing hands within that organization to do with that as well. The problem is with some titles like psychologist, that's not a protected title. Occupational psychologist is, educational, counseling, forensic, that they are separate strands that are protected. It's illegal to call yourselves them. I'm a chartered psychologist, so I'm one of the kind of labels within the British Psychological Society. No one can call themselves a chartered psychologist unless you've been approved by them. So that gives me the extra oomph on psychologist that I am approved by that organisation, and it is a legal title.
I'm sorry, I've just seen a post by Alan Parry. I accept it, Al.
So I've got a question for you as we wrap up this evening. It's been really interesting. I could carry on for another hour, to be honest. So Elaine Curtis says, so can I throw a little cat amongst the pigeons here and ask both Cal and Kev what they think of demonologists? And whether the same might apply. They've maybe only done an online course, but is there actually genuine courses for this title?
That's a good question.
So demonology, we've seen a lot of these bogus courses go out for demonology. You get your certificate. I've met a few people in the paranormal that says, I'm a demonologist. And after you get talking to them, you go, oh, okay. So, you know, where did you go? Where did you study? No, I just did a 4-hour course. But I'm now a demonologist. So whatever you need to know. Okay. I looked at some blimmin' tarot cards and I thought, what the feck is this? I ain't going to remember this in 150 hours, let alone 4. Give up.
Colleague of mine sent me some coronavirus tarot cards that he made.
Oh, never.
That even has a Trump card, the Donald Trump card. The art design in them is amazing.
Oh, that's brilliant. Tell him to sell them.
He does. So I've managed to...
Where?
I'll have to find the link and I'll send it you later, and then
put up the link for us.
Pop it in.
Let me answer that question quite quickly. I mean, it comes under the same issues that I mentioned with parapsychology. Again, as far as I'm aware, no, there aren't. There might be many courses that do suggest that, but they are not legitimate. I don't understand how that could be governed or approved. But demonology itself, could you study it in a legitimate way? Well, yeah, there's loads of universities that do theology and philosophy and psychology and anthropology that would be interested in occult practices and the ideas of demonology. We even have an entire bookshelf standing in the library that's sort of mixed in with psychology, that's on witchcraft and the occult. So we do have such books in our library. So someone at some point has done it within transpersonal psychology, looking at, say, pagan spell casting and things like that, and the actual human experience and the practice and what people believe they're doing or getting out of it. So yeah, you could do it. Possibly a module might teach about the psychology of spirituality or the psychology of religion, and it might be mentioned within that. It gives you the freedom to go away and read as much as you like. You could do your dissertation on it. You could go to a university and say, I'd like to do a Master's of Philosophy, a PhD, or any other type of doctorate that would cater for that. And you find the supervisors that have an interest and they say, brilliant, what's your title? I want to know about the culture of demonology and those that believe themselves to be demonologists and what their practices are about and what influence they have on their cultures and their societies, something like that. Who knows? Yeah, that could become it. And your degree would be titled as such. But it's because you've created it as a research degree, but it's gone through a legitimate university. A lot of legitimate reading, learning, understanding the background, the data has gone into that. And you'd be collecting data to do that. Is there any short online course to do that and be classified as a demonologist? I'm sure there are, but are they legitimate? No. Simple answer, no, they're not.
It's true.
Doesn't the church, I don't quote me on this, but I know we're going over time a little bit, but I don't mind on this because it's really good and interesting. But doesn't the Catholic Church do some courses on demonology?
And that would be going through the theology route. So absolutely.
Yeah, it would be then.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like I look at sort of my journey in that sense when it comes to learning about the paranormal. And I've studied multiple books on demons, you know, and different types of demons and who they are and what they do. And as I've said before, psychology and demonology to me is a very, very archaic version of psychology, you know, from centuries ago. They've named it as a thing. This sort of mental situation, anything like that has been named, but they name it as a demon because of the beliefs at the time and so on and so forth. But as Cal was saying, you can read up on this stuff all you want. It's an interesting thing. But you can't, just because you read up on it a lot, doesn't mean that you're an ologist at the end of the word because you've read on it a lot. It's one of those situations where you do need that accreditation. You do need something to say, actually, the quality control's been there. You haven't just read through some random books that you picked up and now you know everything about it. For me, it's like I could turn around and say, you know, when I was younger and I used to play with Pokemon and I knew every single Pokemon at the back of my hand and say, I'm a Pokemonologist because of it. And go and tell everyone that. You know, that's, for me, how I see demonologists when they turn up and say, I'm a demonologist. Like, congratulations, you read some books. It doesn't give you the title to say that. Because, again, it's that false authority that it gives. And, again, they don't understand the danger that comes from that.
And it all comes down if you believe in demons. Let's put it that way as well.
Yeah. But then if you don't believe in demons, some people can get you to a point where you do.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Carl?
I'll tell you how scary some of these routes go. I mean, there was even one person that was caught and arrested for practicing as a dentist because they gained their qualification through doing an online multiple choice exam. And through whatever routes they got to get their job, people didn't double check the actual certificate they were given. They might have assumed, well, it was registered for the USA and they're coming to practice over here. You know, it looks like a legitimate certificate. They didn't follow it up because the ways that our degree certificates are printed over here are different from country to country. And there are some that, you know, sometimes the admin and so forth don't know what that educational body is going to produce as its final output. And so this one person, and it is an isolated case, you know, please don't panic about going to the dentist or anyone else. But in this one case, they caught the person out who had been practicing. They had been dealing with patients and they weren't legitimate. They had no real training or qualifications. They just got this online one and watched a lot of videos. I'll give that a whirl. You know, no, thank you. I don't want you drilling my teeth or anything like that. But it happened. And so, you know, there's a danger where it's a professional body regulation, certainly an arrestable offence, whether the person knew what they'd done and had just gone ahead with it anyway, or they were completely foolish and thought that was a legitimate thing. Who knows? But there was one instance, and some people could get themselves in hot water with this. Again, if they are going about self-titling, calling themselves a doctor and things like that, and are directly dealing with someone in a therapeutic setting or something, saying that they're offering treatment or offering some sort of service as a professional for a result of whatever they're claiming.
Yeah, and that was a flash up about Reiki courses as well, online Reiki courses, because there's a lot of people out there that practice Reiki and do Reiki, but they're not qualified. I know that because I actually know a couple of Reiki masters and what they've had to do and how long they've done it for to do Reiki. But I've got to be honest, we are 4 minutes over our time.
Yes.
But all I can say is it could go on for another bloody hour, to be quite honest, because when you get the caliber of what we've got on here tonight between Kev and Cal, it's, you know, so you don't want to let go of it. You want to squeeze every bit of morsel you can get out of them. So we hope you come back on. Yeah,
I want to go now because I want to ask Cal about bumblebees and what he was saying.
Oh, right,
bumblebees.
Yeah,
that's another hour.
Well, basically, thank you very much for coming on. Want to say a big, huge thank you and respect to our dead enders. You've been brilliant tonight. Sorry if we haven't got through all your questions, but maybe if I can persuade Kelly and persuade Dr. Cal and Kev, maybe at some point in the future, we might ask you to come back on, maybe on a different subject, and just try to get that outreach out there. And guys, if you would kindly in the chat room share this to your groups, to your pages, get the message out there, get to your family, I don't care, send it by anything. Kenny Biddle, if you're still there, please share this on your time to get it out there in America as well, because I'm pretty sure you suffer with it exactly the same over in the States, really. And Kenny Biddle is a skeptic, but he's absolutely brilliant. I love Kenny, especially his shows. But we would just like to say thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Cal. Thank you, Kev. Bottoms of our hearts for coming on. And it's been really, really interesting. And I hope what has been said tonight actually makes an impact on people. How do you feel about it, Cal?
I think it's absolutely amazing. And my last ask to the guests tonight would be if they wouldn't mind letting people know where they can get in touch with them for more information on courses, or even just a little bit of information about themselves. Should anyone have a question, which I know there was many tonight, but some of them weren't on topic, so I couldn't really go into them. But it'd be great, guys, if you could just let people know how to get in touch with you, or if you don't want to do it now, just pop on something in the comment on this video at the end and let people know how to get in touch.
Perhaps, Kev, you could put up your link to Para-Rationalize, because I know you've got a couple of things on there that people might find that interesting. And Cal, if you've got any links that you think might be helpful, please feel free.
Mine's dead simple, but I can send you other stuff on courses. But for me, if you want to go to my website, it's all the W's, CallumECooper.com, and the same for Twitter. It's just at Callum E. Cooper. So that's my author name, full name on there.
That's brilliant.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right then, guys.
So thanks everyone for tuning in as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you everybody in the chat room tonight. Thanks, Kev.
Bye.
Thanks, Cal. Bye.
Bye.